In my parents' home, I was exposed to the contempt with which they spoke about faith preachers like Reinhard Bonnke, Benny Hinn, Kenneth Hagin, Oral Roberts, Steve Hill, and Katharina Siegling. My father often made me read defamatory articles from state church magazines to destroy the credibility of these preachers. As a Lutheran pastor, he refused to check the validity of these hostile allegations. With deep, heartfelt disappointment, I had to find out how my father, along with sect commissioners and other Lutherans from the Bayreuth parish St. Georgen, faithfully followed Luther's inhuman doctrine on dissidence. He expected others to follow what he thought to be the right things to believe. Because of that, my husband and I were forced to marry in his church, the Lutheran Church of St. Georgen in Bayreuth. While he condemned others, he cooperated in his parish with church staff who had openly confessed to be atheists in their former homeland of Romania and had been leaders of the Communist Party and Securitate collaborators. Their job had been to denunciate others to the police and the Securitate, which they did to facilitate their own emigration from Romania. They projected their own deceitful past onto the life of Katharina Siegling by pinning a false biography on her.
Luther's next target, the peasants. Luther said, "Let whoever can stab, smite, slay. If you die in doing it, good for you. A more blessed death can never be yours. Therefore, let everyone who can smite, slay, and stab, secretly or openly, remembering that nothing can be more poisonous, hurtful, or devilish than a rebel. It is just as when one must kill a mad dog." Luther legitimizes the murder of thousands of peasants with his own interpretation of God's will. Luther said, "I have killed all peasants in the rebellion. All their blood is on my neck, but I blame it on our Lord God. He has commanded me to speak these things."
Maybe Luther's words will startle some farmers from their church pew, at least nowadays. No wonder that the real Luther is rather brushed under the carpet. Who then would pay church taxes anymore if they knew how Luther degraded other people? Foreigners were another target of Luther's verbal attacks.
He appeals for war against the Turks and murder. Luther said, "And use his fist with gladness and beat, murder, rob and do harm as much as they like, with a clear conscience." Luther's next target, the handicapped. In his table talks, he said that the devil foisted changelings and monstrosities and advised to drown such a child. Luther said, "He's not your son, but the devil himself in person. Take the good-for-nothing and cast him into the water. Therefore, throw away this foul offspring without any hesitation." He called handicapped people nothing but pieces of flesh without a soul.
Luther's atrocious image of humanity confirmed to me once more that it had been right to leave the state church. After that, I experienced disadvantages in my job as a kindergarten teacher. Nursery schools, daycare centers, and children's homes are largely controlled by the state church. Even though the government finances 85%, job applicants who are not state church members are disadvantaged in the application procedure. This is false labeling and discrimination.
The collaboration between the government and the state church is nothing new. German history proves that well-known statesmen put Luther's hate propaganda into practice. Their quotations agree with Luther's way of thinking and comments with incredible accuracy. Here are some examples. Friedrich II, also known as Friedrich the Great or the Old Fritz, said the following: "The Jews are the most dangerous of all sects, and one must prevent their number from growing." By that, Friedrich II established the age-long German tradition of inquisitorial persecution of so-called sects, which lasts even until today, but we will go into that later. Otto von Bismarck said the following: "I do not allow the Jews to dominate the press, to obtain political key positions or to take an office of authority." The resigned German Emperor Wilhelm II of Prussia wrote from his exile in August 1919 to the General von Mackensen that the Germans had been ensnared and driven by the tribe of Judah which they hated. No German shall ever forget that nor rest until those parasites have been eliminated and exterminated from German soil. This poisonous mushroom on the German oak, he continued writing to the general, Jews and mosquitoes are a plague, of which mankind should free itself in one way or another. He suggested the method of eliminating the Jews. I think the best thing would be gas. Luther's way of thinking began to slowly penetrate German society and culture. Historical occasions are culminating in the city of Bayreuth. It all starts in 1872 when composer Richard Wagner settles in Bayreuth. In 1850, Richard Wagner publishes his writing Judaism in Music. To add authority to his words, the writing was published again in 1869. Richard Wagner says, "I cannot judge whether the downfall of our culture may be halted through the violent ejection of the destructive and foreign element." He means the Jews and everything Jewish, because powers would be needed for that, of which I don't know if they exist. The desire for political force becomes evident in Richard Wagner's words. He wants to have an executor who would take action against the Jews. Wagner closes by directly threatening the Jews with a terrible end. Consider that only one thing can be your salvation from the curse which is upon you, the salvation of Ahasuerus, the extinction. Richard Wagner's wish came true. Houston Stewart Chamberlain, son-in-law of Cosima Wagner, became the pathfinder for the executor that Wagner was longing for. When he settled in the Wagner residence, he significantly helped connecting Luther's anti-Semitism with Wagner's music. Hitler could count on the Wagner's support because of his personal relationship with the Wagner family. Goebbels admired Chamberlain as father of our spirit, pioneer, and pathfinder. The anti-Semite Chamberlain said the following about the Jews: "Not only the Jew, but everything that comes from the Jewish spirit gnaws away and corrupts the best which is in us." Hitler names the source of his ideology in 1923. Luther was a great man, a giant. With force he broke through the dawn. He saw the Jew as we only now begin to see him. Hitler told the Catholic Bishop Wilhelm Berning in 1936, "I only do what the Church has already been doing for 1500 years, however more thoroughly."